The wind had a strange way of circling the Hart Ranch that evening, low, heavy and restless, as if it carried secrets from the mountains and refused to let them settle. Gray clouds hung over the sky like soaked wool blankets, dimming the sunset and coating the ranch in a copper-gold gloom. Horses in the corral tossed their heads uneasily, stamping hooves into dry dust that lifted and swirled with every new blast of wind. Inside the ranch house, Elijah Hart lit a lantern with hands steadier than most men's. But tonight even he couldn't hide the tension coiled in his shoulders. He had faced wild horses, wolves, droughts, and winters that killed men in their tracks. But nothing unsettled him the way the silence upstairs did. His new bride, Lydia, had barely spoken since the wedding ceremony. Everyone in town had called her the quiet dove, gentle and soft-spoken, raised by an elderly, aunt after her parents died in a river, accident when she was young. She was known for kindness, humility, and a smile that warmed the coldest hearts. Elijah had married her not out of convenience, not out of pressure, not out of loneliness, but out of love. A rare love, a quiet love, the kind of love that grows with patience rather than passion. So when she had started trembling on their wedding night, her face pale, her breath unsteady, something inside Elijah twisted painfully. He tried to calm himself. He poured a glass of water. He checked the fire. He paced from wall to wall, boots thudding rhythmically on the wooden floor. Still, the silence from upstairs lasted too long. Finally, he could bear it no more. He climbed the stairs slowly, every step echoing like a warning. At the top of the staircase, he paused. The door to their room was cracked open, warm firelight spilling through the narrow gap. He pushed gently, letting it open with a soft groan. Lydia sat hunched at the far end of the bed, her fingers gripping the quilt so tightly her knuckles were white. Her long dark hair fell over her shoulders in tangled waves, nothing like the neat braids she wore at the wedding. Her breathing came in uneven bursts, each inhale laced with pain. "Lydia," Elijah asked softly, afraid to startle her. She jerked slightly but didn't lift her head. He took a slow step toward her. "Talk to me, sweetheart. What's got you trembling like this?" She swallowed hard, squeezing her eyes shut as if trying to hold back tears. "Elijah," her voice cracked. "It hurts." He crouched beside her. "Tell me where. Tell me what you're feeling." She hesitated long enough that Elijah felt fear twist again in his gut. "My stomach. My sides," she whispered shakily. Then after a long breath, she forced the words out. "And down there too." Her face burned with humiliation, but Elijah's heart broke. "Lydia." He didn't hide the softness in his voice. "Pain like that isn't normal. Something's wrong." She nodded, barely. "I didn't want to ruin our first night," she whispered. "I thought maybe it was just nerves, but it's getting worse, Elijah. It feels like something is tearing." Elijah felt a chill run down his back. He rose and gently placed a blanket around her shoulders. "You're not ruining anything," he said firmly. "You're my wife. Protecting you is my first duty. Nothing else matters." She trembled even harder, pressing her face into her hands. "Elijah, something's wrong with me." "No," he said instantly. "Something is wrong to you." She looked up at him for the first time that night, eyes wide, shimmering with fear. He hesitated only a moment before asking, "Lydia, do you trust me to take a look? I need to see what's hurting you." She froze, the question hanging in the air like a blade. For several long seconds, the storm outside seemed to still, as if waiting for her answer. The fire crackled. The wind whistled faintly along the window frame. Elijah almost withdrew the question, not wanting to pressure her. "But then," she nodded weakly. "Elijah, please help me." He pulled in a deep breath and moved slowly, carefully, reassuringly. He took the edge of the blanket, his fingers gentle, making sure she felt safe. Lydia lay back reluctantly, her hand gripping his sleeve with surprising strength. "Tell me if anything hurts," he murmured. "It already does." He swallowed hard. Then, slowly, he lifted the blanket. And in that instant, Elijah froze. His breath caught in his throat. His heartbeat slammed against his ribs. His entire body stiffened as his eyes widened with shock, because what he saw wasn't the shy innocence of a bride. It wasn't anything close to normal pain. It was injury. Fresh, severe, wrong. Lydia saw his face and immediately panicked, her fingers clutching his arm desperately. "Elijah, what is it?" "Tell me, please." But Elijah couldn't speak. Not yet. Not while his mind reeled. trying to piece together what could cause such damage. He forced himself to inhale, slow, controlled, but filled with dread. "Lydia," he whispered, voice shaking for the first time she had ever heard. Who did this to you?" She froze, her whole body stilled. And then, as lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room for the briefest moment, Lydia broke. Her face crumbled. Her lips trembled. Tears spilled down her cheeks in a flood she couldn't hold back. "No," she whispered. "Please don't ask me. Please, Elijah." He knelt beside her, taking her hand gently. "Something happened to you," he said softly. "Something someone did. And I swear to you, Lydia, I will not rest until I know the truth." She sobbed into his chest, clutching him as though he were the only solid thing in a world that kept re-breaking around her. "Elijah, I'm scared." "I know," he whispered. "I'm going to protect you. But first I need to know who hurt you." Outside, thunder cracked like a rifle shot. Lydia buried her face deeper into Elijah's shirt, and in a voice barely audible, so faint he almost didn't hear it, she whispered the name. The moment she said it, Elijah's eyes went cold. Because the name wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a drifter. It wasn't a forgotten ghost from her past. It was someone Elijah knew. Someone close. Someone dangerous. And as the storm raged across the plains, Elijah Hart realized this marriage had begun with a wound someone meant to hide. But he would tear the whole world apart before he let it stay hidden. The wind screamed around the corners of the ranch house as if the storm itself had heard Lydia's whispered confession and wanted to claw through the walls to finish what had been started. Elijah didn't move. Not at first. He sat frozen beside the bed with Lydia trembling in his arms, the echo of that name pounding through his skull like hoofbeats on hard earth. A name he wished he hadn't heard. A name he had trusted. A name spoken by the woman who was now sobbing into his chest as if afraid the darkness would swallow her whole. He drew a slow breath and forced himself to steady. There were moments in a man's life when he could let fear lead him, and moments when fear had to be strangled with bare hands. Elijah Hart had never let fear win, not once, and he wouldn't start tonight. He pulled Lydia gently from his chest, cupping her face with steady hands. Her eyes, red and shining with tears, searched his as though begging him not to explode. "Lydia," he said, voice low but unshakable, "I swear to you, nothing you tell me will make me angry at you. Not ever, you hear me?" She nodded weakly. "I'm angry at what was done to you," he continued. "At what someone tried to hide. At what someone tried to make you carry alone." Lydia shuddered at the last word. "Alone?" she whispered. "I was so scared. I thought if I told you, you wouldn't want me. That you'd think I'm ruined." Elijah closed his eyes, a pain ripping through him so fiercely he had to bite back a growl. "You are not ruined," he said through clenched teeth. "You're hurt, and whoever did it will answer to me." The storm outside cracked with thunder, almost as if the land itself agreed. But when he looked at Lydia again, he saw fear overshadowing her expression. "Elijah, you can't tell anyone," she begged. "Please, you don't know what he'd do." "That man already did enough," Elijah snapped before he could soften his tone. But Lydia flinched, and he immediately gentled his voice. "I'm sorry, I can't stand thinking about what you've been carrying." Her eyes filled again. "You can't fight him," she whispered. "He's dangerous, and he's powerful." "Elijah Hart doesn't care about powerful," he muttered. "And I've faced dangerous before." But Lydia shook her head desperately. "This is different. If you go after him, he'll kill you." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Elijah felt something inside him crumble. He wasn't used to hearing fear aimed at his mortality. People didn't worry about him. But Lydia did. His wife did. He took her hands and squeezed gently. "No one is killing me," he said softly. "And no one is coming near you again." She trembled. He could see battle waging in her mind. Fear versus truth, trauma versus trust. "Elijah, I didn't tell my aunt," she whispered. "I didn't tell anyone. I was so ashamed." And he said no one would believe me. Elijah's jaw tightened until it hurt. He stood slowly, pacing to give himself room to control the rage, shaking his body. His shadow stretched across the room, long and tense, thrown by the fire that popped and cracked with each step he took. "That man used your silence," he said, voice dark, eyes narrowed. "He counted on fear. That's how cowards act. That's how snakes slither in the dark. He turned to face her fully. But I'm not a man who leaves snakes alive, Lydia gasped. Elijah, please, I told you because I trust you, not because I want revenge. I want peace. I want this nightmare to end. He stared at her for a long moment. She looked so small, wrapped in blankets. So fragile. Like a bird who had fallen from a nest and shattered her wing. Yet in her eyes, behind the fear, was a flicker of strength. A quiet courage. The kind of courage that made Elijah love her long before she had ever said yes to him. He sat beside her again, taking her hand gently. Lydia, he said softly, nothing you tell me will leave this room until you want it to. But I need to know everything so I can keep you safe. I can't protect you from a danger I don't understand. Her eyes drifted down. She swallowed, her fingers twisted in the blanket. It happened months ago, she murmured. Before the wedding, before my aunt fell sick, He cornered me behind the storage shed near the river. I had gone to collect laundry lines. Elijah listened, his breath held tightly in his chest. He grabbed me so fast I couldn't scream, she continued. He pushed me against the wall and... Her voice broke. Elijah immediately placed his hand over hers. You don't have to describe it, he whispered. I already know it was violent. I can see the truth. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks. He told me if I told anyone, he'd ruin you, she said. You, Elijah. He said you wouldn't get the land lease. He said he'd turn the townspeople against you. He said he'd... Elijah raised a hand. Lydia, he said, voice calm but edged with steel. I don't care if he threatens my ranch, my name, my land, or my life. No man has the right to break you and walk free. But... No, he shook his head. This ends now and I end it. She reached for his hand desperately. Elijah, please don't confront him alone. Elijah leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I won't leave you, he said softly. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not ever. The storm outside softened slightly, the wind easing as though the land itself was listening. We'll get the doctor tomorrow, Elijah continued. Not just for your injury, but to document everything quietly, safely. She stiffened. But if people find out... They won't, he assured. Not until you're ready, not until you decide. Her shoulders sagged with relief. Elijah, she whispered, voice breaking, I don't deserve this kindness. He cupped her cheek. You deserve more than you know, he murmured, and I'll spend my life proving it. For the first time that night, Lydia smiled, small, frail, but real. Elijah kissed her forehead, lingering there as if imprinting a promise onto her skin. He helped her lie back gently, tucking the blanket around her. Rest, he whispered. As her eyes fluttered closed, Elijah stood and walked to the window. The storm clouds had begun to break, the moon pushing through in silvery streaks. But his own storm had only begun to form, because now he knew the truth, and tomorrow, he would face the man behind that name, the man who had dared lay a hand on Lydia. Elijah Hart, calm rancher, gentle husband, felt something inside him. Shift, harden, sharpen, like steel left in a fire too long. Tomorrow would not be peaceful. Not for him. Not for the man who hurt her. And not for anyone who thought Elijah Hart was a man to be threatened. As Lydia slept, Elijah made a silent vow to the dark horizon.